Welcome back to the garage, everyone. Well, the insurance renewal coming through reminded me that I've now had my 2009 BMW F800 GS Adventure for pretty much a year. So I think we should go through and I'll give you my impressions of the bike after 12 months of ownership. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you'll probably remember that I bought this BMW as a bit of a replacement for the Triumph Street Triple, the 2012 Triumph Street Triple, after we pretty much give up on trying to solve the constant problems that we were having with that bike. It was an X-Track bike and, yeah, hadn't been treated well over its life, I don't think. So we gave up on that and moved that on, and I purchased the BMW from Wheels Motorcycles in Peterborough. I wasn't really looking for an adventure bike, but it did catch my eye. And yeah, I was looking for something that was a good all-rounder, that would be reliable as a daily bike to commute to work, but I could also take on longer trips and sort of do some touring, traveling about. And I think I did quite well choosing this. Now, over the year that I've had it, I've pretty much taken it to work every day, apart from a few days over the winter where it was just horribly cold and icy and I didn't really want to risk it, and a few gorgeously sunny days when I've taken the Suzuki Intruder instead. It's also been on some longer trips with me. I've taken it down to Reigate from here in Cambridge to the Cave Days several times. It's been across to North Wales for the mining conference. It's been to South Wales for the Caving Club barbecue. And it's been down to the New Forest for a bit of a camping trip there that turned out to be very wet. So I'll say I've done a good mixture of riding on it. Haven't really done much off-road stuff. I've driven up or ridden up a few tracks. I've done one very short green lane. But yeah, I didn't really buy it as an off-road bike, but I would like to do a bit more green laning on it if the opportunity arises. Now, given my previous experience with the Triumph Street Triple, I should say as the first thing really that I've not really had to do many repairs, if any, on this bike. I gave it a new battery quite early on because I felt it was a little bit sluggish in starting, and that has improved that massively. And it's had one service at a dealer. I didn't service it myself, had it done at a dealer, and that was quite a reasonable price. That was a couple of £100 for the service. I think I've adjusted the chain once. It doesn't seem to really go too much out of adjustment. And apart from that, I've really just washed it and checked the oil and checked the tyres and things like that. So yeah, it's been pretty good on the needing repairs front, which was one of my main criterias in selecting something new, really. Another thing that I was quite keen on was to get a nice, comfortable bike, a bike that I could cover some long distances on. And I have to say, this bike is very comfortable. It's good on the motorway. I feel quite comfortable at motorway speeds on it for long distances. It's still quite nimble around country roads. I've never really had any problems on that front. And this seat as well, it's got sort of an aftermarket cover on it, which sort of helps keep everything cool during the summer and also helps water drain away in the winter. So in bad weather, extremes of weather, heat and wet, it does keep you relatively comfortable, certainly compared to the old Street Triple. Now, it's not really fair to compare this bike to the Street Triple. Of course, they are really totally different styles and types of bike. But of course, that's my experience. I moved from the Street Triple to this. And one thing I did notice when I moved to this was the increase in weight. The Street Triple was pretty light in comparison to this. This is not really heavy. It's not as heavy as, for instance, Chaz's GS 1250 to push around, but you still notice that you're pushing around a little bit of weight. But I can maneuver it okay around the garage, so that's all right. It's also quite high. It's a lot higher than the street triple, of course, being an adventure bike, and that took a little bit of getting used to as well. Having said that, you don't really feel the weight once you get going. The height did take me a bit longer to get used to than the weight, to be honest. I can put my feet down. I can't put my feet down flat. I'm more on my toes. I'm pretty used to it now, actually. It doesn't really occur to me that that's what's happening anymore. But initially, it did feel quite high up. Now, in terms of general sort of riding feel and performance, it's not as fast as a Triumph Street Triple. I'd definitely say that. It doesn't accelerate as fast, and it doesn't presumably go as fast on the top end. Of course, haven't really tried that. I tend to be a fairly calm rider. I don't go whizzing about at top speed everywhere because I'm riding all the time. I'm riding for work and just as daily transport. So if I whizzed around like a maniac everywhere, I don't think either me or my license would last very long. So yeah, I'm not a speed demon, but even so, it's more than lively enough, and I think I can drive it or ride it in as spirited a way as I rode the Street Triple, albeit I was less experienced when I had the Street Triple, so I did tend to go quite steady. But if you opened up that Street Triple, you got that sort of lovely deep roar of the exhaust, and you shot off like a rocket. This definitely sort of picks up speed pretty quick and whizzes off, but it makes a lot less of a fuss about it. So yeah, it is generally a sort of a calmer bike. Now, in terms of cornering and sort of general nimbleness, you can whiz about filtering through traffic and stuff. No worries. I haven't got big panniers on the back or anything, so I don't really have to worry too much about width. And it seems to go around corners okay, as much as I can judge that, really. And even on the knobbly tyres, things like road noise and stuff like that don't seem too bad. You can feel the knobbly tyres as you sort of slow down. As you sort of almost get to a stop, you can feel the knobbles on the tyres. But once you get going, that sort of all goes away, and they're absolutely fine at speed on a tarmac road. One thing I know a lot of people do complain about on these bikes is sort of dive under braking on the front end. It is very sort of soft. It's yeah, if you squeeze the brakes enthusiastically, you will sort of do this sort of whoo, 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 whoo. But having ridden it for a year, I've kind of got used to that now, and I sort of ride it accordingly. I know there are upgrades you can do to stiffen that up, but I suppose being a sort of a adventure bike, supposed to be able to take bumps and lumps and things, I guess that's why it's like that. But I know a lot of people feel it's excessively so, and people who do ride them off-road a lot, I know, report having to stiffen up the front forks with aftermarket stuff to avoid it sort of bottoming out on bigger lumps and stuff. But that's not worried me so far, given my very, very limited off-road use of this bike so far. Now, I do hesitate to mention anything about reliability. Really shouldn't tempt fate. Is there some wood I can touch? I'll touch wood. I've had absolutely no reliability issues with this bike. Started on the button every time. No breakdowns, no little niggles, nothing like that at all. Did have a puncture on the rear tyre, but I don't think we can really blame the bike for that. That was a massive sort of screw thing that had picked up on the road somewhere, and I don't think what type or make of bike it was would have influenced its ability to get punctures at all. So I'm not really counting the puncture as any sort of breakdown. And in fact, I managed to get it home. So I've got a can of that sort of spray goo stuff, which didn't entirely work, but worked enough to get me home. So absolutely 100% reliable. Now, of course, as I said, one of the reasons I selected this bike is I was looking for something I could tour a little bit on, certainly go to places like the Welsh Cottage or go on sort of camping trips with. And this has turned out to be great on that front. Didn't really have any trouble with the Street Triple, to be honest. I managed to go on a little bit of a trip with that, but I can strap my bag, the tent, my sleeping mat, everything onto the pillion seat. I've got the top box that Chaz gave me. I did have to buy a different bracket for it to mount it than the bracket that Chaz had on it. The only thing I will say, because of the age of the bike being 2009, doesn't seem possible to buy the proper givey sort of side mounting bits for it. I've looked at sort of generic ones and ones that sort of might sort of fit if I fertiled them a bit, but the givey monarchy system, I've got the side boxes at the top, you can't buy a new bracket for the 2009 version of the F800. I think they still make the F800, but it obviously is a different generation. I'm not sure how different the modern ones are, but they're different enough that the new luggage racks don't fit, unfortunately. So that is one downside. In terms of running costs, I think it's been reasonable. I mean, I didn't pay a fortune for the bike. I think I paid about $3,200 for it from memory. It was roughly the same as I paid for the Street Triple, so it's comparable in initial purchase cost. The servicing cost didn't seem excessive. As I say, I paid, I think, a couple of £100 for the service, and yeah, feel wise, it seems pretty frugal, to be honest. I get a couple of 100 miles out of a tank, and yeah, what's the tank? About 20 quid's worth of petrol. So yeah, I think in general it's quite economical. Obviously that depends on your style of riding, but I've found it to be certainly more economical than the Street Triple was. So I'd say cost of ownership so far has not been too bad. I've not had to do any major repairs, and I think being a BMW, that may be where the cost hits if you do have to do that. But of course, if you bought something else, you may be doing more frequent repairs. So it kind of evens out, I think. Now, we've been very sensible and talked about economy and reliability. And yeah, I think we're kidding ourselves a little bit that that's the main criteria when you buy a motorbike. When you buy a motorbike, I think you go on looks and feel, really. And this definitely feels nice, especially now I've got used to the divey sort of front end and the height and the weight and such. And it definitely does look nice, I think. I do like the look of the bike. Obviously, it's one of the things that caught my eye when I was looking through the adverts and such, was the look of it. That's the first thing that attracted me to it, of course. It's a lovely, striking colour. I do like the colour. And yeah, it's got that sort of look back factor where when you park it, as you walk away, you turn around and have a look and think, yeah, that's nice, that is. So yeah, I do think it's pleasing on the sort of appeal, the look, the styling kind of front, and yeah, I quite like the graphics on it as well. So yeah, it's definitely a bike you can be proud of, I think. I'm certainly proud of mine. So there you go, that pretty much sums up my impressions of the bike after 1 year of ownership, and I certainly plan on keeping it for the foreseeable future. It's definitely not something I'm looking to do to swap this for something else. I am still very much in love with the bike, really. So yeah, I would say overall my impressions of it are very, very good. In summary, the few negative points are those divey front forks take a little bit of getting used to, and of course the height and the weight. But if you were too worried about height and weight, then you probably wouldn't be buying this style of bike anyway. So if you're considering buying a F800 GS Adventure, I would say it is a very good choice. I'm not really tempted to go up to the larger bikes in the GS range. Obviously this one has the Rotax, the parallel twin, rather than the Boxer of the bigger bikes, and I think the Boxer looks good on the bigger bikes, but I do prefer this sort of narrower overall feel to the bike. So yeah, overall very, very pleased with it. So there you go, we will see you again very soon in a future video where we may even be taking this bike away camping again.